Hi and welcome back. So what are we going to do today? Well, you can see on the table in front of me I've got a couple of floppy drives. That might give you a clue as to what we're up to here. This drive is actually from my Amiga 4000 and it's actually a working drive. It's a sort of larger drive. Well, let me show you this drive here and you'll see what I mean. It's slightly taller in height. It's still a 3.5-inch floppy drive, but it's slightly taller. And it's actually the height of this drive, which is the reason why it's actually not in my Amiga 4000, because I wanted to put a Teac in there. The Teac is actually this height. And if you actually put this height of drive with this combined, imagine this is the Teac, it won't actually fit in the Amiga 4000 because the drive bays are only for these smaller heights. If you want to put two drives in. If you want to put one, it's fine. And Commodore actually did a bit of a diddle on us really back in the day because they actually have a blanking plate, which is this size. And as I said, I got the Teac, which is this size, and I wanted to put it in, and it just wouldn't fit. So I couldn't actually have two drives in that machine. So I had to come up with a solution, and the solution was this. This is actually a PC floppy drive. You know, obviously for the PC market, there were many more PCs by the end of, well, the end of use of floppy drives. The Amiga kind of bowed out to a large extent in the middle of the 90s. Obviously, it carried on for a while, but the PC went on to become super dominant, and therefore there are a lot of these drives around, almost none of these around anymore. Well, you won't get any new old stock Amiga drives as far as I'm aware anyway. So the only thing you can really do is to buy a PC drive, convert it, and I have actually converted this. This is converted from a PC drive to an Amiga drive. And so yeah, anyway, one of these, I bought two of them, ended up my Amiga 4000, and it works great, which is great. So why am I waffling on about floppy drives? Well, today I'm going to look at two external floppy drives that I actually got in my Amiga 4000, as I call it, hoard. If you watch the video about what I call the rescue, which is when I shot off to Worcester in the middle of the UK to pick up that a bunch of stuff. There was like Sony monitors, the Amiga 4000, obviously. There was a broadcast mixing desk sort of thing with switches and so on, an oscilloscope, a vector scope, loads of stuff. And part of that bundle were these two floppy drives. And back in the day, these were very much desired because if you had, say, for instance, an Amiga 500 or an Amiga 1000, you only would have had one floppy drive. And it may seem weird, but in the beginning of the Amiga journey, there were no real hard drives. So your floppy drive was the only way of really getting data, you know, games and programs into your machine. You booted from a floppy drive, you loaded data from a floppy drive. So it was important that you had two, you know, and very often people would buy an external drive to make life a lot easier. And I was one of those people. So what's the problem? Well, let me just put these out the way. Both of these do not work. At least I've done a cursory test and they do not work. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to test them again on camera, pretty much expecting them not to work again. I've got my cleaning disc here to clean the head on the floppy drives, but I don't think that's probably going to do the job. I have the feeling that what happened with these is that they just got used up and something broke in their electronics, and that's going to be very difficult to fix. So anyway, let's not procrastinate. Let's actually get on with it. We'll do this one first. Just put on my glasses because this is slightly precision stuff and my eyesight is not as good as it once was, unfortunately. Turn on the monitor. I'm going to plug it in on the back here into the floppy drive port in the back of my A2000 here, which we're going to use for testing. And let's turn it on. Okay, there we go. So it's booted up, and so far we see nothing. So I'm going to get my cover disk, an actual Amiga cover disk from back in the day. I'm going to pop it in. There's nothing. Oh, actually, this one actually has a broken eject button as well. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, let's have a look. So we're seeing nothing on screen. I'm just going to turn it off. There's a disk select button here, so you can check which disk it is. Maybe there's a problem with that particular ID. I don't think so, but we'll give it a try. Ah, there was a bit of movement then. Yeah, there's a bit of grunting going on. Don't know if you can hear that. It doesn't sound normal. Ah, cover disk is working. Okay, well that's good. What we need to do now is have a look at this eject button. So maybe this is actually working, which is good. So let's just turn that off. We'll open it up and have a look inside. We need to fix this eject button. I've got my pillbox here, and I'm going to use these two cells to actually store the screws in. Okay, there we go. Let's see how this works. It doesn't want to come out that way. There we are, slides out the front by the looks of it. Okay, right then, so the bad news is the eject button is pushed right back here, and I'm going to push it back into position. There we go. Still works. However, it does look like it's about to break. So I think this drive, unfortunately, will have to be replaced by the looks of it. I can use it as a backup, but I don't trust that eject button. It's already bent inwards once. It'll do it again. So let's, I think we're going to retire, or yeah, we'll retire this drive. It's not broken, but might need to have some work done on that button there. So let's unplug it. There we are, data cable's unplugged. And you know, it's just a normal 3.5-inch floppy drive. So what we could do is we could replace it with this PC drive. We could actually use this exact one here. In fact, let's give it a try. So let me just put this over here. Okay, that's a bit weird. I don't know if you can see that, but basically the data connection here is on the left-hand side of the drive. The power's on the right, and over here is the opposite. So this isn't going to work in here. The reason why I say that is because this case is super tight. You know, by the time this is all bunched in like this, there's no way that that cable can go to there. You'd have to twist, you know, to get over there, and then this would have to go across it. So this isn't going to work. It's just not going to work. It should mechanically work, but we'll test that. Let's just see if it does. Let's just plug this in. There we go. Now this is a bit awkward. Which way around is this going to work? Is it going to work any way around? Yeah, it's super tight this. This is pretty bad. There we go. Shall we leave it like that? Yeah. Yeah, that's not going to work. That's very, very tight. So a little bit worried it's going to break. Okay, there we are. Seems to be all right. Okay, let's turn on. I could hear a little noise there. It should work. This is a known good drive. I tested it in my Amiga 4000. So we'll just see if this disk works. Should do. And then, so it looks like what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get a new drive. Chances are it's probably going to be another PC drive. Like I said, working Amiga drives are very rare. And if they do exist, they're probably on their last legs anyway. Yeah, there we go. So the cover disk is working. Let's just check it, open it up. It should work. Yeah, it's fine. So it looks like the electronics in this area is working fine. I'm not sure why this wasn't working previously and all of a sudden started working. I mean, it might suggest that this is marginal, right? That it's basically on its way out and it only worked today by chance. I must admit, let me show that to you on camera. The amount of electronics on that is crazy. And I have no idea what's going on there. There is no schematic whatsoever. So the chances of me repairing this is basically near zero. So unfortunately, I think we'll keep this as a sort of holdout drive to use in desperation. But because of that eject button there, the chances are that's going to break. I could try putting some Milliput in there maybe. That might, which is a kind of epoxy putty, and when it dries, it goes super hard. I could try putting that in there. It might actually help. Let me just eject this. Try it in here. I just want to see the travel on the button, see how much it goes in or out. Yeah, it pops out. Okay, so I'm going to do this very gently. It does pop out, so there is the possibility that if I put some Milliput on this with a disc in there to make the button pop out to give myself more room to work, then I could let that dry and that epoxy putty would then solidify and then keep this actually strong. So I think I'll try that. It'll look a bit janky, but it'll do the job. And then we'll allow this drive to work if we need it. Like I said, if one of these other drives work and I need another drive, I can use this as a sort of slightly dodgy backup. As we saw, this drive works, so that's good. So the enclosure works. That's the main thing. The drive, like I said, is problematic because it's such an old drive. The other drive out of the pair is very, very dirty. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't used in a dirty environment as well for some reason. Maybe it was just left in a garage or something for a very long time and it got dirty inside. But anyway, this looks like it's good. So let's unplug that. In terms of cosmetics, there are some black marks on the bottom. This is actually from the rubber feet that are from it. I've already taken those off. These have basically perished. They're not very rubbery anymore. And they've actually, whatever glue was on them has kind of dissolved and it's caused this black smear across the surface. So that's easily cleaned up with some alcohol or something like that. And the outer case of it here is actually in really good condition, really. It's a bit dirty. There's looks like there's a bit of coffee staining going on the top. But I think if I wash that in soapy water, it's actually going to come out perfectly fine. So yeah, I think we've got a potentially working device here. We just need to get a new drive for it. So let's put that to the side, get the other one. But before we move on to take a look at Drive B, let's have a quick word about our sponsor who are very kind to sponsor this video, PCBWay, where you can make your tech dreams a reality. And now in PCBWay's new Project Share, you can upload your projects and share them with the community. And if you do use any of these projects, a percentage of the money that you pay will actually go to the author. So you can share your projects and you can also benefit the projects that others have shared on PCBWay. So if you do have any projects, why not upload them to PCBWay and get them out to the community? And of course, why don't you browse the Project Share and see if there's something there that's interesting for you? Because whether it's PCB prototyping, PCB assembly, 3D printing, or even CNC machining, PCBWay is the way. Starting with an instant quote for your PCB projects, PCBWay will leap into action, building your PCB, assembling it for you if you wish, and once it's passed their quality tests, it'll be winging its way to you in a flash. PCBWay, PCB prototyping the easy way. Okay, this one is looking pretty dirty. I'll hold that up and we'll zoom in so you can see that. Yeah, it's filthy. Apart from that, the cable looks okay. Connector looks fine. So let's just test it. Let's just see if it's working. We'll plug it in. And I'll put the switch on the back in the same position as the other one because this position didn't seem to work. So let's try that. We'll turn it on. Didn't feel any mechanical action on this one. There was no, you know, like the head's moving. So let's try the other position. Ah, yeah, there was in this position. Okay. So oddly, these two switches seem to work differently. On that one, you have to be in the left position. On this one, it has to be on the right. It's quite strange. Okay. Try a disk. Unreadable. Okay. Let's try the cleaning disk. Could be the heads, you never know, they might be dirty. It's a funny sounding drive on this. Just a bit of alcohol in this. There we are. Pop this in. So, you know, obviously when the disk spins, it's actually a slightly fluffy cleaning disk. And then the alcohol on this rubs against the heads and cleans it, gets any dirt off it. You can do it manually as well by opening up the drive, but this is a lot faster to use. So that's why it's quite good to have one of these. These are relatively rare these days, and I think they have a shelf life on them. This one says, do not use more than 15 times. Well, I'll probably be using it a lot more than 15 times, let me tell you. Because, yeah, getting those is not easy these days. Let's just wait for a second, and then we'll just try the disk in a second. I think it should be all right by now. Mechanically, obviously, it sounds exactly the same. Sounds like the same problem we're seeking twice. So, yeah, I can't read it. So, it looks like the mechanism in this one is actually broken. Let's open it up and have a look inside. We'll put these into the second cell here, keep them separate. This one has a plastic case, actually, whereas the other one was metal. So the other one, technically, may be slightly better quality. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just a manufacturing decision. They found it easier to make a plastic shell for it. How does this come off? Oh, okay, that was easy. That other one actually does have vents in the top of it, real vents. This one does not. They are fake. So, yeah. Maybe this one is a slightly cheaper one. Oh, actually, having said that, it's got a Sony floppy drive in it, so seems to be better quality. Bit of a problem here. There is no actual power cable here. You would expect there to be the headers here, but there aren't. It says 5 volts here, and there's no floppy connector. And what they've done is they've actually soldered or connected a wire directly to the pin on the floppy drive here. Which is a bit cheap and cheerful. Not a good thing to do, really. So really, we can't test this drive. However, mechanically it worked. It's getting power. If we replace this, I think, with a connector cable, I think it'll work perfectly fine. I'm saying. It's got the data connector on the right-hand side as well, the same as the other drive. So again, this isn't going to work in it, this PC drive. So I think that's all we can do in this video so far. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go off and order some PC drives, which I can then convert. I can't use this model because it's just going to have the same problem as this one, right? So yeah, we're going to have to order some PC drives, which are the right way round, with a power connector on the left-hand side and the data connection on the right-hand side. Then I'm going to have to convert them to be Amiga drives, which isn't easy because there are so many different types of drives. And then when I've got those, we're going to have to desolder this here and put a proper floppy connector on it so I can connect it up and, you know, make it easy to remove. And then we can test this one. And I would have a feeling that this would probably work, just like the other one. It's not that likely that, you know, the electronics is damaged in this area. It does actually have a socketed chip in this one. So even if it was damaged, it would just be easy to buy another one of those chips, pop it in, and then hopefully it'll be working. There's literally nothing going on here. There's a resistor pack, one other one here, and a chip. So yeah, it's very, very basic electronics. So let me fly off to eBay, get those orders in, and then when we've got those drives back and converted, we'll try putting them in and see how far we get. And in the blink of an eye, I'm back, except that actually over a week has gone by. And I did what I said I was going to do. I went off and I ordered some drives off eBay. I did try to find Amiga drives, but they're very thin on the ground these days. So in the end, I just looked for any 3.5-inch drive that was in working condition. And then, of course, an interrogation then followed where I had to ask the vendor, did the connections actually appear to be on the right side of the drive? And there were a couple of drives actually where that wasn't the case, and I had to turn down the drives, which was a pity because they're, you know, in good condition. In the end, I did find 2 drives that were the right way round: power connector on the left and data connector on the right, looking from the back of the drive. And I've got these here, as well as the Samsung drive that I showed you earlier. So if you watched the previous video, and we'll link to that up there, I then had to go through a process of converting them to be Amiga drives, and that was quite involved. So I had to do quite a lot of research on the internet, find some blogs where it had been done before. Because if you don't do that, what you're going to end up doing is reverse engineering these drives in some cases to find out exactly what goes where. I'm not going to get into that in this video because I go into it in a lot of detail in the previous video. So please watch that after this video if you're interested in seeing how that process actually works. But the result was we did end up with 2 drives which are actually working now as Amiga drives, and we should be able to use them with these enclosures. So we have it's a Teac drive. This is one drive here, and this was actually quite tricky to convert because this drive was kind of, how can I put it this way? It's like a kind of cost-reduced drive where Teac didn't build that much scope into it to actually allow it to be reconfigured to be anything other than a PC drive. You could convert it to be an Amiga drive, but basically the silkscreen printing on it didn't give you any sort of idea what you needed to change. There are a couple of signals, disk change and ready, and those just don't appear on the silkscreen, so you have to kind of work out what those are. So yeah, that was tricky, but in the end we got that done. And then this was a slightly easier one, and this is an Alps drive. And the nice thing about this drive was it also had the ability to fix it so that it only expects double density disks, which are the disks which the Amiga uses. For instance, this disk here. Now, the difference between double density and high density, I would assume, is the quality of the disk to some degree. But also there's a hole here, which is actually indicated on this disk, but is actually filled in. So I would imagine they're almost identical in terms of manufacture. But this one doesn't have a hole in it. This one does, which indicates it's a high density disk. And if you actually put this into a normal Amiga drive that only accepts double density, it actually won't work correctly. It will read it fine, but if you want to write to it or if you want to format it, it's just not going to work. So you have to use tape to tell the drive that it's actually to be treated as a double density disk. But because of the modification that I have on this drive, it doesn't need that anymore. You can actually put a high density disk in with the hole open, which would then normally be detected as a HD disk, and it will actually just treat it as a double density disk, and you can format it and write data to it. Yeah, if you can find this drive, I'll put the serial numbers of all of these on the screen so you can actually get them, and I'll try and put them in the notes for the video as well. Anyway, so yeah, this one we won't be using. As we know, the connectors are the wrong way around, so I'll just put that over here into our spares area. I'll show you what happened with the cases. These are the 2 different cases, the tops. This is the first drive that we looked at. I just washed it with soapy water. I didn't bother showing that on camera because at the end of the day, it's just a Welsh guy in a sink washing dirt off a case, which is not particularly thrilling. I then used some alcohol just to get off any sort of oily residue that might have been left behind, and that looks pretty much new. I mean, you can't really see any damage on it whatsoever. So yeah, whoever owned this, they didn't knock it about much, but they did get it a little bit dirty. And let's face it, don't we all drink coffee and things like that. We all have dirt on our fingers to one degree or another. This case took a little bit more work. Washed it with soap and water. Then I scraped off the plastic, which had been melted there, which was basically producing a lip. It could have been that it was actually melted by a cable, a power cable maybe, resting on it. We know that plastics can actually react to other plastics and effectively produce burns in them. I don't think it was anything like a cigarette or a hot soldering iron or anything like that. I think it's more likely that it was actually a plastic cable that actually caused that. But anyway, I persevered. Then I used some magic eraser, which is a sort of fine abrasive. Horrible stuff. Always goes up your nose. It's horrible stuff, but it does actually do the job. And it takes off those fine scratches. And there are a couple of scratches in this, but overall, I think it looks pretty good. The color's fantastic. There's a little shiny patch there, which would accept a sticker. And I do have plans to put a sticker on there. I'm thinking about putting maybe an Amiga tick, you know, just to show it's an Amiga drive. And what I might then do is just make 2 of them. We'll put one on here and one on there, which I think would actually finish those off quite nicely. So those are the cases. Let me show you the first of the 2 drives, the internals. There's nothing much really to see here. Cleaned the cable. that's all really. And it's looking nice and shiny now and nice and clean, which is good because it was actually absolutely filthy. And I think we're ready to go with this. So let's plug it in. Plugging it into the back. And we've got a nice data cable here and our power cable. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm trying to work out which one of these two is going to be my favorite, my favorite drive. The drive which gets the magic drive that can just read HD disks as double density. And I just think that in the end, the metal one maybe deserves it because it's the slightly better build quality drive. So yeah, that's the only reason why. I quite like the fact this has a little sticker area on this. I don't know why that appeals to me, but it does. But to be fair, this has got an actual real vent in it instead of a fake one. So overall, this is actually the better build. So this gets the slightly better drive. So let's connect it up. Pop the power connector on. And what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to test it, just make sure it works. I've already tested it in the previous video, but I'm just going to do it in this one just to reassure you that it's working fine. There we go. Case is on, so I'm not going to short anything out. Let's turn on the Amiga 2000. What I'm going to do is I'm going to test it with two discs. I'm going to test it with this double density disc, which is a boot disc. Which is a cover disc from a magazine from back in the day, Amiga Computing. And I'm going to actually test it with this disc as well, which is a high density disc, which doesn't have the hole covered, which means that it won't actually work in this drive normally. But as I said, this drive is a bit of a superstar because it actually does after the mods that I did. So let's see what's going on. There we go. Let's pop this in. This should read just fine. There's the grunty noises. There's the cover disc. And as you can see, it reads it perfectly well. Takes a while. Yep, that's all good. Let's take that out. Now for the HD disc, completely untouched. There we are, empty. Is it empty? Not sure if I actually emptied this after the use in the previous video. Let's just check. Show all. Yeah, it's actually empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to utils. And I'm going to get a small file, something pretty quick to copy, like no click. We'll drop it in there. And there it is. It's that's it's a very small file, very quick to copy. It just shows that it's working. Now, if that didn't have that modification, it wouldn't actually be able to copy the data to it, and I wouldn't be able to format it. Let me show you being able to format it as well. Oops, there we are. Oh. Actually, you can't format a folder, you have to format a disk. There we go. So I'm just going to do a quick format. Believe me, this wouldn't work if it wasn't modified. It wouldn't quick format it or normal format it. And there we go. Works perfectly fine. So this is my sort of superstar drive, fully functional. All I need to do now is put the case back on. So yeah, that's great. And we need to, yeah, we'll put the case back on in a minute, actually. Let me just put it out of the way to test the other drive. I'll leave this plugged in because this is actually going to be a thing. Here's the other drive mechanism, or case, I should say. And what I've done is I've actually replaced the original wire that went on here. Let me just show you how I did that. So this is the second drive's enclosure. And what we need to do is get it so that it can be used with any drive, not the one that it was soldered to. So what I've actually done is I've used my snips and I've come in and I've cut the cable there. The reason for that is it just seems to have been bonded somehow to the pin on the power connector on the broken floppy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace it with a DuPont connector, which hopefully you can see here. And yeah, that's going to be it really. I'm just going to clip this because it's actually quite long, longer than we need. And I'm just going to strip the wire. I'm going to put a little bit of flux on the wire. And then what we're going to do is we're going to desolder that wire that's currently there. We're just going to try and solder this in place of it. So let me turn this around so you can see it a little better. Okay, so first thing we'll do is we'll remove the existing wire. There we go. And now we want to solder the new wire in place. I think I need some more solder on the pad actually. It's actually quite slight, the amount on there. There we are, that's quite a decent bobble. Now let's try and get this wire to actually be friends with it. There we go, that's pretty good. Let's try and get in a bit more. That was good. There we are. That should be our power connector, which we can connect up to any drive on pin 4, as we did before. Except it can be removed. If that drive ever dies, we can replace it with another one. And we should be good to go with this. I'm going to give this a quick test, make sure it works, but it should work fine. So yeah, now we have a DuPont connector, which means it's much easier to connect it up. As it seemed to work previously, I decided to just keep with it. And there doesn't really seem to be anywhere on the board to connect up the ground. That's why I decided not to bother trying to do that. It was engineered this way. It seemed to work, perfectly well previously, so we'll just keep with that. So this is the Teac drive. So I'm just going to plug in the data cable first. Actually, let me do the power cable. There is one, well, quite a big downside actually to doing it this way. You've got to make sure that you plug that DuPont connector into the leftmost of the pins on the power connector, because otherwise you're powering 5 volts into potentially the wrong connector, and that would be bad. And I suppose that's why you have the standard connector, which is keyed, so you put it in the right way round. And that's why this is actually a bad practice, I guess. But like I said, they haven't really supplied the places on the board to actually solder up a proper floppy power connector. So I'll just go with this for now. So as long as I keep on putting the power cable in the right place, following where it is. There we are, that's plugged in. Same deal with the cable. It's nice and clean, ready to go basically. So let me just put these out of the way. I'm just going to plug it in. Let's turn on the machine. And we'll do the same test, right? We're going to put in our double density disc, and then we're going to put in, I think we've actually left the disc in here. Yeah. I'm going to put the HD disc in here as well, and I'll show you it not working, just to show that this other drive that we have there is actually a little bit of superstar. Let's just pop that in. It's working, so the power is working fine. My DuPont modification is working fine. There's the disc. Believe me, that's reading fine. I could open that up and read it, and it works perfectly fine. I've tested it previously. Now I'm going to put in the HD disc with the hole open, so it probably is going to have troubles with this disc. There we are. There's the disc. And if there were files on there, I would actually be able to read them. Let me just check if there are. No, we just formatted it, didn't we, actually? Yeah, so there's not going to be anything in there. But if I were to try and copy files to it, let's try doing that. Because that should work if we think about the other drive, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to work. So let's put no click in there. And it's making grunty noises. It doesn't like it. And I know from previous experience that Workbench really doesn't want to give up copying the file. So you have to click on cancel quite a few times to actually get it to cancel. It's a little bit annoying, actually. I think that's something that these days wouldn't be allowed in an OS. So bear with me until I actually do get it to cancel. Come on, cancel. There we go. So yeah, it's not going to work. So what about formatting? Okay, so we'll just select the drive, go up here, format the disk. I'm going to try and do a quick format. and I can't do it. And the only difference is that this disk doesn't have this hole covered. If it was covered, it would work perfectly well in this drive. It's expected behavior. So I've got another disk here, which I've covered up. There we are. We'll pop that in. So we'll format disk as well. Format the disk. Quick format. That's done. As you can see, it's perfectly fine. And let's just put no click in there again. No click. I use no click because it's a very tiny file, so it's actually very fast to copy. So let's just show all on here. There we are. No click. Okay, so all we need to do now basically is put these back together physically, and I think we're done. So first up is the metal case drive, and we're going to try and put this back together. I remember this being quite fiddly. Not sure why, but it is. That definitely doesn't go through that way. I think it might actually have to come apart, and then you have to plug it in. Let's have a look. That might be the easiest thing to do, you know. Let's get it in. Cable's on. The tricky part is getting it all to, you know, physically fit back in the case. And yeah, I think that's good. Now we need to get all of these cables to align. And then I just need to get the holes to align on the bottom. There we are. Needs a bit of force to do this. There we are, good to go. All we need to do now is put the feedback on it, and then I think it's basically completely ready to go back into full action. Fantastic. Okay, so I've got the rubber feet here. Had to hunt around for these. Haven't used these in a while. Or eventually it did turn up in a cupboard. Hopefully the adhesive on these is okay. It's looking a little bit yellowy. I don't really want to put something on that's actually looking old when we're trying to replace it with something new. So let's try these ones. Just need to get the backing off them. This one's already done. Okay, I think I'll put it at the front here. The corner. Same here. There we go. Plug it in, give it a quick test. Make sure that something hasn't come unplugged while we were actually putting it back together, because there's a little bit of mechanical stress, you know, jiggling things around. Heard a bit of a grunt off it, which is good. Let's turn on the monitor. Pop the disc in. It's working great. Okay, so that is basically done. So unplug it. One very old external drive now fully working, ready to go. And with a disk, in fact, that can actually take HD disks without actually being modified, which is really great. Okay, on to the next one. So we've already got this plugged in. We just need to put the case on. It's going to be the same thing again. It's going to be trying to get this to, all fit in the case. I remember this one being a bit easier to put together. I think you put the drive on first like that. And I think it just slides all the way through. But I think we need to get this metal plate underneath here, not on top of it. There we are. Okay, now the tricky part. Yeah, that's gone under. Turned out to be quite easy. What it is that there are screw holes on the drive, and then a hole in the bottom of the metal plate, and then a hole here, and you've got to get all three of them to align, otherwise you're not going to get the screws in. That's looking good. Usual technique, reverse the screw in, and then when you're happy, forward. Don't screw it very tight, just leave it very loose just to get them all in. Reverse, forward, that was good. Reverse, yeah, that's going in. Yeah, this one's actually a lot easier really, overall. Back, forward. Now that I've got them all in, I can start tightening them up. And I'm not doing any of them up super tight. There's just no need. There we are. That's good. Let's plug it in. Give it a test. Yeah, made a noise. That's good. So we can tell that the power cable hasn't come unplugged by whatever means. It's only a DuPont. That's another problem with that DuPont connector. But it is fine. I think I did hear it grunt. One thing I have found on these is that the drive select switch on the back can be a little bit loose. It is really loose on the other one, and if you're not careful when you're fiddling around with it, you can knock it, and then the drive doesn't appear to work anymore. And it's just the drive select switch. Let's pop the disc in. Yeah, it's reading the disc. There we are. Amazing. We've got 2 external floppy drives for the Amiga finished and ready to go. I think the only thing I would need to do now is really do a sticker for here. So let me have a look at that and see if I can do something about the sticker, because it would be quite nice to have some kind of branding on it rather than it being a completely beige enclosure like this. And if I do the sticker for this, I think we can do the same thing for the other one. So they're kind of like a matching pair. So yeah, let me go and have a look at that. So I've gone off and I've made the stickers, and I've got them ready here. Honestly, the hardest thing about making these stickers was actually getting them to unpeel. I created them in Photoshop. I got them the right size, nice high resolution images, printed them out, and then cut them out with a knife, and then I couldn't actually peel them apart. So anyway, I've peeled them apart off camera and they're ready to go. All I need to do now is put them on. So let me just turn this around so it's facing towards me so I don't make a mistake. And it's a nice Amiga Teac. Let's peel this off. Get it placed nicely. Line it there. There we go. That's cool. No mistaking that. This is an Amiga external drive. Drive number 2, as I would be calling it. Let's get the first one, the metallic one. Now this doesn't actually have a little patch on it where a sticker was meant to go, but I'm just going to wing it, and hopefully my graphic design skills from years and years ago will stand by me when I do this. Hopefully, obviously the first thing I do is I don't put it upside down. Let's get it quite close to the edge, like say there, and then I think that's fine. That'll do. Just look. Yeah, that's fine. Now I'm not sure how well this is going to adhere. The other problem is these are not shiny stickers. So there's a possibility that these will get dirty over time. But then again, I can always replace them later with newer ones, right? There we go. Got a pair of really nice external floppy drives that will stand me in good stead in the future. Whenever I need now to use an external drive, I've got one. And the reason why this kind of mattered to me was when I bought the Amiga 4000 Horde, it had so much equipment in it, and it was the main thing I was focusing on was the Amiga 4000. Obviously, that was what I wanted in that bundle, but I had to buy the bundle to get that machine. But at the same time, there was some really cool stuff in that bundle, you know, and these two drives were two of the things which were probably the most mundane things there, really. But at the same time, these were really useful pieces of equipment back in the day, and they're still useful now. You know, if I have a machine that has a problem with the internal floppy drive and I do need to do something, then I've always got one of these available to plug into a back of my Amiga 500, my 2000, my 4000, and I've always got access to actual real floppy disks. And I may even do, you know, a bit of nostalgia and play something like Ultima, which I think required 2 disks from what I remember. There was the disk for your game and then there was a save disk. I might even do that as a bit of sort of a walk down memory lane. Anyway, they are now fully working, as I said, and they're ready to go. And hopefully that was, you know, this was useful to you. I mean, it wasn't anything too technical in this video. Really, we just took them apart, tested them, and then found out that both drives were, well, one was completely broken. The other one was marginal, right? It does actually work, but, you know, there's a problem with the button inside it, as I said. So that particular drive will have to be reinforced. The button on the front will have to be reinforced, and I'm going to use Milliput for that. So at this point, I decided that, I don't know, it felt like unfinished business. I had to do something about this button. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a quick detour, and I'm going to show you how I actually did fix that button using Milliput. So earlier, I mentioned that this drive here, I'm going to try and show this to you. So there is the bracket there, and that actually connects to the button here. The button is mounted on it. When you push this in, this L-shaped bracket here, if I can get that on camera, that actually obviously pushes inwards and then ejects the disk. Now the problem is that that L shape there has become weak through metal fatigue. So I was just testing this drive out. It seems to be fine, I think. I mean, it actually does work with double density disks in terms of forcing HD disks to be double density. So it's a great drive. So it'd be a pity for it to break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fix that. It's going to be in a slightly janky way, but I can't think of a better way of doing it, to be honest. So I'm going to use a product called Milliput. There it is. And it comes in different types. So there's this standard stuff, which is a kind of gray color. And what that actually is used for, it says it's actually for plumbing. So you can put it around pipes, and I think it will dry and then go kind of waterproof. There's another type, which is the fine, this one, which comes in a white packet. I think it's a little bit more expensive. And the actual putty itself is a little bit whiter looking. So I've got 2 tubes of it, and I've used very little of this so far because it does go a long way. And I'm going to use fine in this regard because it's just a little bit, well, finer. So it'll just be a little bit more controllable. I'm going to use my screwdriver. And something I've got to be careful of is that when this is finished, that I make sure I wash it off, because if it dries, it will go extremely hard and be very difficult to remove from my screwdriver. And I don't want to damage this. So the first thing that I need to do is get these 2 little quantities of the putty and mix them together. And that will then activate the epoxy resin aspect of it and, you know, set it on course for setting rock hard. So there's nothing high-tech about that. I just need to knead them together to form a uniform putty, and then we'll actually put it in place. And what's nice about this stuff as well is it actually is water soluble, so you can actually water it down ever so slightly and make it a bit more pliable, but it will just carry on and dry. So yeah, let's knead this together. Okay, I think that's pretty much ready. Obviously got some on my fingers, that's normal. Need to make sure I don't get it on the fascia of the drive when I put it in. Okay, so this is going to be very difficult for me to do on camera. I'm going to have to hold the drive and then put this in position. I'm making two little balls of it because that's actually what I need to kind of do this, kind of two sides to the bracket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put the putty on one side and the other side. And in the middle, there's a little piece which is, there I see there's a hole there. So obviously I can't really put it there. But what I will do is I'll try and put it here, and I might even push it a little bit into this plastic here. So let me try and do that. So let's just roll it up into a little ball, into a tube. I'm going to lie it in position. I think that's enough once I've actually modeled it a bit. And the other one the same. Just put that in position. Come on, stick into my fingers a bit. What I'm going to do now is just push it in a bit like this. And looking around for a tool that I can use that's maybe another screwdriver. Got to make sure it doesn't squidge out the sides too much. And I've also got to make sure that it doesn't block the mechanism when I shut it. Otherwise that'd be a disaster, right? It'll fix one problem and create another problem. So yeah, let me just push that in there to make sure it gets a good bond. There we are, it's pretty good. I'm pushing it down onto the bottom as well, just to make sure that it's adhering to the bottom plate. There's no point in putting it in place and then it doesn't actually, stick to the bottom plate. It's not going to give it any strength. It's going to kind of ideally go on both. So I'm trying to squash it down onto the bottom plate. Okay, let's try ejecting the drive. Yeah, it's not fouling the mechanism. So let's make sure that's nice and square. Yes, it is. I've just checked it to see that it's square when I'm side on. Let me get this angle right for you. Looks like it is. And I've tried pushing it in and it actually goes in and comes back out again, and it doesn't stop the drive from opening and closing. So I think now, just a case of leaving that for a couple of hours and letting it dry, and hopefully that will fix this drive and we won't have any more problems with the eject button about to break at any moment. So with that done, I let the putty dry for a while, or rather harden, I should say. It doesn't really dry. And after about 5 hours, I tested it, I pushed the button in, and it was no longer bending. So the putty did a great job of actually fixing the drive, and that means that it's actually going to be useful in the future. So anyway, let's get back to what I was explaining about the drive. It is working. I think it's actually this one here. It is actually working, but it was marginal because when I first tested it, it didn't work. So that's possibly the heads. So what I think I'll do is in the future, I'll take this apart, I'll take the top off, and I'll use some grease to grease the rails, make sure the heads are completely clean, test it quite a few times. I can actually take these apart again if I want to do that, so I can easily plug it in and test it. And I think then what we'll do is we'll have another drive spare, which I can then use in the future. And who knows, maybe, one of these might break in the future, and I've always got a backup drive with this. So I think it's worked out pretty well in the end. These are working, and that will hopefully repair. So it's also a usable drive in the future as well. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope you also went and actually watched the previous video where we got these drives converted to be used in an Amiga. That was an interesting journey. I was trying to be a bit of a perfectionist, trying to get the double density stuff working as well, but I only managed to do it with one drive. But you never know, somebody out there in this audience might know how to get it working in, say, the Teac drive. The Alps was the one that we actually got working. The Alps is in here. And this was the Teac drive. And I also did spent quite a bit of time trying to get the Samsung one working with that. Well, there were these two pads in it called Op A and Op B, but I just couldn't get it to work in the same way as the Alps drive, which was a little bit disappointing. Anyway, something for the future. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please click on the like button, give the like button a donk, fondle it, love it, do whatever you want to do with it, but please click on it. And if you did like the video, then please also subscribe as well. And if you do subscribe, please take the time to click on the bell button, which will give you a notification so that in the future, when I release videos, you get notified about it. Because, okay, it's great to subscribe, but if you don't click on the notification button, you're not actually going to know that I've released new videos. And hopefully you'll want to watch those when they come out. So please take the time to just make sure that if you are already subscribed as well, please check that you are actually have the notify feature turned on as well. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one, hopefully. And until then, have a good day. Take care.